Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's a beautiful Friday. I'm Ayo Makinde. Welcome to the show.
Thank God it's Friday. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
I don't know if I heard you say thank God it's Friday, but if you did say so, I'm certainly joining you in the thanks bouquet.
Why is that?
Oh, yes, I'm happy to see Friday. I'm very happy to see Friday. Good morning and welcome to the program. I'm Maukwe Yusuf from Abuja.
Well, yeah, I'm happy to see Friday, but we're happy to see other days as well. But I'll be happier if
what?
Let me just hold off a little bit on that part. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the program. I'm Chamberlain Uso. Well, I know we'll come to that bit where you see all over the dailies this junketing, political meetings, horse trading, and all whatnot in the political parties, just wooing themselves now, trying to position themselves to ensure that they get what is best for themselves as they keep, trying to see who gets the better of each other. Don't forget the operative word themselves. I use that a number of times instructively because largely that is what it's about, because they'll also tell you it's a game of interest. And you may think it's the nation's interest. That is what they'll tell us anyways, that it's the nation's interest. But largely, personal interest first before it comes elsewhere. So you need to be discerning how you take certain decisions. But that said, speaking about certain decisions, the Bello KK committee that was set up by the FG and to review the Amapeple white paper, the Oronsaye report, I beg your pardon. They've submitted the white paper, and so they plan to look through the PACs, parastatals, agencies, and commissions that were set up between 2012 and 2021. They want to see what it is that can be done, especially now that government is grappling with resources. So it's something that they're looking to see what can do. I mean, take for instance, Nigeria's debts has mounted. Nigeria generates 106 trillion. We spend 4.7 trillion, spending 118% of revenue on debt service. That is challenging. Now they want to see what do they do about those agencies? Do they merge them? They're talking about streamlining to ensure performance. They want to focus on service delivery. They want to make sure that they're a lot more efficient. Sometimes they even consider perhaps government should stop funding those agencies. And so all of those considerations are in the mix. So at the end of the day, who knows what will eventually come through, even though the SGF has promised they will expedite action on this white paper.
Let's wait and see.
It's
a game of wait and see, because this has been mooted long before now, that there are so many government agencies, a lot of them duplicating functions, doing the same thing, that another agency is already doing. Yesterday, I think it was Ayo, while he was asking a question on this electricity transition, it's energy transition, beg your pardon, and he said he just keyed in the words energy, and I think at least up to 10 different government agencies jumped out at him, and we're talking about energy, and still Nigerians don't have enough energy. We don't have enough power. We're still importing fuel into the country, finished products of fuel. So there have been questions as to what precise, we have all of these beautiful policies. We have all of these wonderful ideas. And it's one of the reasons why, just this week as well, we had the conversation on the establishment bill, which the National Assembly is thinking of to prosecute corrupt electoral offenses. And then there are questions as to, are you sure we don't already have bodies that can do that work already? So these are some of the questions that we need to really ask ourselves as a people. As we continue to face this financial crunch, which we ought not to be facing ideally, but we have to ask if these problems are not self-inflicted. Because for every single agency you create, it has its own bureaucracy. And for the bureaucracy, you will also have, things that must be provided for these offices to be able to function. So is it possible for us to expand the functions of already existing offices? How is it going to work? Maybe we can borrow a leaf from how the NNPC has already been privatized, because we know that there are a number of, did I say privatized? It wasn't privatized. It went public. It's now a public liability company. So it's a public liability.
It's supposed to function as a proper company. Yeah, it's a limited company.
It's a limited liability company, not a PLC. I know that they're two different things. So, but maybe we can learn from how the NNPC has gone about it, because there were a few government agencies that had to be collapsed into the structure of the NNPC. I know that one of the big issues is how they do this without workers losing their jobs, because you do not want to swell the already huge unemployment market. But I keep asking, if we're going to get efficient, if we're really going to be able to do things properly, and be able to be truthful with ourselves, because there is so much to do. And they're just looking for people who will do these jobs. I don't know if they're looking for people, or maybe we're just too lazy to figure out, these things to be able to do. But when you look around, even a city as beautiful as Abuja, there is so much to do. There is law and order to be maintained. There is so much that, unemployment, we really do not have any excuse to have the kind of unemployment figures that we have. But if there is a way that we can collapse it, we can find work for everybody whose functions are going to be streamlined, fine. But if we cannot, I don't know how easy this conversation is going to go with Labour, because I know that they're certainly going to be interested in this merger process. Lady and gentlemen.
Well, guys, I just have to, sometimes when I want to look at these issues, the first thing that I want to do is, okay, do we have a background? Do we have a history to this? I mean, the Oronsaye report, for instance, that we're talking about dates back into the previous government. But is it just the previous government that has attempted to do this? Many people who listening to us and watching right now would remember the Udoji Commission that came up with the popular Udoji Award in, I think it was in 1974. But what you will find interesting is that efforts to restructure, reshape, reform the public service dates back 1934. And between 1934, I think, and 1960, we've had 11 commissions already looking at reforming the public service for one thing or another, one way or the other. And of course, subsequently, we've had some dating back 1971, even 1968, and the rest of them, up until the one that we're talking about. So, Mark, but when you said, let's wait and see, I think it's a very instructive, statement to make and something critical to look at. The reason for that is this. So we have been at this bus stop several times. One of the accusations, one of the criticisms that followed the Udoji Commission's report was that the government of the day picked and chose what they wanted, just to win public sympathy, because there was the oil boom, money was still, very much, popular and all of that. So it was that government just picked and chose what they wanted at that time to look good for whatever reason. Is the same thing going to happen here now with all of the recommendations? We know that the federal government is considering something in the region of 900 billion naira or so if the Oronsaye report is to be implemented. The mergers, the collaborations and everything, as Maokwe has pointed out, all those agencies, ministries, departments that need to come together. Some may be, relieved of their jobs. Maybe that's why we will need something in the region of 900 billion naira for that purpose. But again, I echo Maokwe this morning. Let's just wait and see. We have heard that there's collaboration necessary with the National Assembly. Fine. But how quickly would that be? Because as Chamberlain, as you pointed out, we need to cut down on expenses, cut down on the cost of governance so that we can have more functional use of the little resources that we have.
Indeed, Ayo. Hard times require hard decisions, And I recall, was it 2 days ago here when we were having a conversation, you raised a poser about having the CCB, the CCT, when you were trying to justify or ask the guests to justify the setting up of an electoral offences commission, and for which the guest, opposed, so to speak, But then again, Nigeria is spending between 2009 and 20 to date, I'm not quite sure, but we've spent 29 trillion naira on debt recurrent expenditure. That's a lot of money. And in fact, 900 billion naira is nowhere near 29 trillion naira. But then again, it's huge savings, and I also want to echo Mark yet again by saying that Labour is going to be interested in this conversation. Don't forget that the implementation of the Oronsaye report is part of the 33 recommendations that the governors recommended to the federal government in that report that leaked as part of ways to rescuing the economy since, debt servicing is overshooting revenue. But what Labour is saying is that asking civil servants to retire compulsorily at the age of 50 is unfair, and that what is good for the goose is also good for the gander. If you're going to ask civil servants to retire compulsorily at the age of 50, what about politicians? And we know that politicians also, are in high numbers in the National Assembly. But I'm not quite sure that the streamlining and the merger would lead to, it may lead to what do you call it now, efficient service delivery in the public service. But then again, as I said earlier, it's a hard decision to make, and that would mean job losses. And that's going to affect many households. So the human angle is there as well.
Well, while we wait for that one, there is a decision that is not so hard for us to make, and that decision is to take the papers.
Yes.
So while government is dealing with its own, let's take a look at the papers this morning.
All right, let us take you through some of the dailies here today. We'll start with The Guardian newspaper. Wike's UK meeting with Obasanjo, Obi, Atiku heightens 2023 puzzle. Well. I know many were a bit surprised when former President Obasanjo showed up in the meeting. I thought, wow, so much going on over there in UK. And then look at the riders now. PDP confident of amicable reconciliation. Atiku orders Lamido, others to halt verbal warfare over Wike. Strategic meeting to unite Osinbajo, Amechi, other APC presidential aspirants in the works. Because when we come to think of it, has there been any reports, has anybody seen anything or meetings being held between the APC presidential flag bearer, former Governor of River State and Minister of Transport, Rotimi Amechi, and Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo?
Apart from the initial visit of after the primaries, there's been nothing of the sort. And people are saying that the presidential candidate of the APC will also have to reach out to all of these other core contestants with him in a very genuine way, not just the preliminary or the post-primaries visit, which he paid all of them. But let us see what happens. I do not know if he's left it too long, because there's been plenty of silence. Well, the VP has been away on a medical leave. But we don't know what the former Minister of Transport has been up to.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the president...
He's been very quiet.
Oh, yeah. He's been... I think he's doing the program and he's trying to improve, knowledge, study, and things like that. Maybe after that.
He has been doing that since forever. He's been doing that even while he was minister, so that cannot be the reason why he's been quiet.
Okay, Mr. Minister, she said it, I didn't say it. So you can ask her. Well, you would have thought the president would have said, at least for once, let these papers leave me out of all this.
Who's that?
Mr. President. President Buhari, he might have said, please just leave me out of all of this. You will do whatever you want to do. But he's not out of the news. Look at this. Buhari must apologize for poor governance, says Middle Belt Group. You thought, well, Mr. President, the box stops at your table. So
indeed it does.
They have to call
Indeed it does. Look at this. Leadership Friday is next, and they are captioning this story a little differently. This junketing of our political leaders. Look at this. London meetings. Europe, new political playground as governors weigh fresh options. Wike, Otom, Makinde, Ikpeazu, Fintiri, Parley, Obasanjo, Obi, Atiku, others in the UK. At whose expense is the question. Ex-VP cautions PDP BOT members over unguarded utterances. Jonathan Sambo stressed unity, issues-based campaign. The story is on page 4 of the paper. The pictures are quite telling.
Yep.
You might want to take a look at. Yeah,
But
yesterday there was a statement by the PDP publicity team that the former vice president did not go to the UK to go and see Wiki. Well, I don't know. These pictures say otherwise. Maybe it became, I don't know, was it a side attraction? Was it, let me just stop by? He went to London for something else, or was it Paris he went to?
At least you can't blame the press, because the press read the press release, and then we see the picture. We also reported the images that are there. So make up your mind what you see.
We did our jobs. We did our jobs. Well, take a look at all the stories here. Diaspora Commission warns Nigerians against visit to Northern Cyprus. Yes, Mrs. Abike Dabiri said that yesterday, that Northern Cyprus is a country recognized only by Turkey, not even the United Nations.
Wow.
And that if you're stuck there, it's going to be very difficult for the Nigerian government to do anything about it. So, to be forewarned is to be forearmed. UN urges increase of Nigeria's education budget to 20%. Who is listening? It's the key question. But let's leave it there for Leadership Friday. Oh yeah, conversation with Azu is also on the back page. Don't miss this one. It says, have the hustlers finally ousted Kenya's dynasties? That's a big question. Let's leave it there for Leadership Friday.
And from Leadership on Friday, let's take a look at Nigerian Tribune this morning. And it also leads with politics. The big story making rounds. Obasanjo, Obi, Wike, Makinde, or Tom, others meet in London. Fintiri joins Atiku to meet Wike. Others as ex-VP calls for ceasefire among supporters. Tinubu, Amechi, Lawan to meet in Abuja. You'll also find that picture there of the politicians after the meeting. And you've asked rightly, Mark, in whose interest, I thought it was the constituted anti-party activities to be seen romancing a party rather than yours, to be seen in the company of members of other political parties. Don't look at me like that. I'm just asking a question this morning.
There's nothing wrong with members of Koren and NSE meeting. I mean, they're all engineers.
They're all engineers.
Yeah, I mean, so.
Okay, we'll go with the explanation this morning. Let's take a look at some more stories. You find above the nameplate, security-related stories. Military eliminates 57 terrorists in 2 weeks. Nabs 21 pipeline vandals. That's heartwarming, and again, we hope that momentum is sustained. In the middle, right after that, you'll also find that the next one: woman sells 3-week-old baby for 600,000 naira in Ogun. That's been going on for some time, and coming after that, you'll find hoodlums cause havoc in Lagos community block Badagry Expressway. And just to quickly add, to the conversation, more than 20 Nigerian students killed over the years in Northern Cyprus. That's attributed to the NIDCOM boss, Mrs. Abike Dabiri Iriwa. That's it for Nigerian Tribune this morning.
Flipped of the Vanguard newspaper, and it's also following in the same line with other papers this morning that we've looked at. 2023, Obasanjo, Obi, Wike, Duke, others meet in London. That's the lead of the paper this morning. And the pictures confirm. Well, if you are having doubts, you want to Google the picture so you know the timeline. That's the lead of the paper this morning. And look at right above the nameplate. Okay, well, just so you know, there are 2 sets of pictures. Okay, the first one, Obasanjo meets Wike, Duke, Obi, others. And right under that one, Atiku finally meets Wike. So that story, about whether or not it happened, well, the pictures are saying this. Whether or not there are new pictures, I guess we still wait and see. I mean, because we saw that report, that statement from one of the campaign officers. I'm just going to leave it at that. You do your research yourself. Right above the nameplate, Nigeria's low public investment in the education sector will imperil 2030 global goal UN wants. Now, this is a very, very instructive one. 2030 is when the SDG Sustainable Development Goals are supposed to terminate. And 2030 is barely 7 years away. And this is what the United Nations is telling us. We didn't do quite well with the Millennium Development Goals. Now, this is where we are with the Sustainable Development Goals, one of which goals is on education. And we are already being warned about what's going to happen in 7 years. Chamberlain often said, you know what someone will do by what the person has done before. So
absolutely.
what have we done about education over the years that's led to this warning about low public investment in education? It's futuristic. I guess that's the story you'll find on page 6 of the paper today.
You recall just yesterday we were talking about, access to energy being one of the sustainable development goals, and we're only just rallying now, to resuscitate, or is it propose a new energy transition plan, for which a lot of doubt has been raised as being only a change in nomenclature. But let's see how it goes. Let's not be pessimistic this morning.
Well, Mr. and Mrs. this morning, it's a Friday morning, as Marco would say. So Mrs. is telling Mr., how do I look, darling? I want the world to know that my husband is taking good care of me. And Mrs. is saying, Mr. is saying, I'll advise you take it easy. Your friends are making passes at me. That's the Vanguard newspaper this morning.
Okay.
Well, I hope that Mrs. has a bigger sense of humor as Mr. does.
Else, the usual Friday will not be usual Friday. Look at this Nigeria. That's the next one here today. 2023, Atiku finally meets Wike in London. And then you see this bit. Inside source says, nothing concluded. Discussion continues. Also,
It's the name of a car. Discussion continues.
I think one is end of discussion.
End of discussion.
And then you see, also, Obasanjo leads Obi to meet Rivers Governor Ikpeazu Duke Otom Makinde in UK. Wow, you just wonder. This horse trading, a lot of it. And you just, speaking about APC, look at this at the bottom here. Osinbajo, Amechi, 20 other presidential aspirants to rally support for Tinubu. So that's the big one there. There are several other stories on the front page here, but that is this Nigeria today.
I woke up this morning with a song in my head, and it was from Keith Daniel.
Oh.
And the title of the song was Oshe. Every single thing I'm saying here, I just want to say Oshe at the end of the day, because we're saying something about troubling their timelines. This is what the politicians are doing. Troubling our timelines, and if we're looking at this on Instagram, all our megabytes will be gone by now. Look at this. They're suddenly feasting on this story. 2023, Obasanjo in London brokers Obi Wike alliance. I'm sure the Labour Party supporters will certainly be very happy about this if this actually sails through. Camps set up technical committee to harmonize strategy as Atiku confers with Rivers Governor, warns supporters on divisive comments. Wike Atiku feud. Bode George urges Lamido, PDP elders to learn from La, Ekweme, Bolaige, others. 2023, Tinubu gets August 31 rally date from Osinbajo, Amechi, Lau, and others. Pages 2, 6, and 8 will give you the details. I don't know what I'm about to just say. Oshe. Again, back out of ASU strike. Students tell state varsities slam lecturers for demanding strike month salaries as NANS clocks 40. COASU may resume strike over non-remittance of salary deductions. That story is on page 3 and 4 for you. They also have this one, How to Revive Nigeria's Steel Industry by Naseni EVC. That story is also there somewhere. On top of the nameplate, Nigeria missed saving 12 trillion naira over subsidy payment. Commitment clipping CBN's intervention in Forex. Who's speaking? You might want to see the details on pages 3 and 25. We've been saying this, the fact that oil prices have been above $100 per barrel, and yet we're unable to profit as a country from this. Raises big questions on our management on the God-given resource that, we have. Especially this is as oil rises above $100 on potential OPEC plus supply cuts. So oil prices are up again above $100 per barrel, and still we're unable to save. Then when will we save? Page 6 will give you the details. They have a number of other stories just beneath the nameplate. You might want to do that yourself, but let's leave it there for New Telegraph.
And from New Telegraph, let's take a very quick look at the Daily Times of Nigeria this morning. And it takes a detour from the big political story on all other papers. And this one says, insecurity, 137 borders in Nigeria are unguarded. That's a big one. Little wonder then that, all the borders of the Northwest, have been recording security breaches. Well, let's take a look at the riders. Says porous borders account for easy access of tourists, bandits from neighboring countries into Nigeria. Calls for use of technology as a tool in strengthening Nigerian borders. That's a big story there. Let's take a look at another one beneath the picture, the big picture on the front page. DHQ confirms death of Uzaifa Iswap, 4th in command. Another success story for the Nigerian military. And of course, the Daily Times did not miss out on the big story, but that's just by the corner. You'll find it there. And it reads thus: Obasanjo, P2B, Wike meet in London. And just before we exit the Daily Times, let's also look at this one. Vaccination. FG urges traditional rulers to intensify efforts on community mobilization. That's the Daily Times of Nigeria this morning.
Look at the front page of Daily Trust. And again, it is also looking at something completely, well, not completely different, but different from most. 2023, be responsible. Put Nigeria first. Jonathan tells politicians, urges citizens to vote right leaders. Sambo wants issue-based campaigns. Leaders have a lot to learn from IBB. That's ascribed to Shomale and Akilu. Find the details of that on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Among others, of course, Daily Trust doesn't completely black out the lead of other papers. Intrigues as Obasanjo meets Wike Obi in London. Stories on page 25. And I'm wondering why it's Europe this time. We've heard France, we've heard London, and where else? Germany? Not Russia, is it?
Don't ask me.
That's on the front page of the paper. The issue of education we raised earlier, it's also here. Stories on page 3. UN to FG increase education budget to 20%. That and many others on the inside pages of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. And that's our look of at some of the dailies this morning. Choose and pick which one is yours. You may have some reactions you want to send to us. Our email has been on the screen and you will still see it. In the meantime, we'll take a short break now. When we return, it's time to take on the issues for the day. Please stay with us. Well, thank you. With the 2023 elections is definitely building up thick and fast, and so many issues are rising up from various parts of the country, different states, and all of that. But this morning, our attention goes to Gombe State. Exactly how has it been? I've looked at some figures myself, and I'm wondering, but it's gladdening and at the same time concerning. More of that in Abuja. Chamberlain.
Well, yeah, I will go ahead and find out the political climate in Gombe State. So we've got two gentlemen joining us here this morning. Honorable Mohammed Danazumi Adamu is the Director General, Mohammed Jibrin Barde Campaign Organization, as well as Ambassador Moses Kiaribolda, Publicity Secretary of the APC. Gentlemen, good morning and thank you for joining us on the program today.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
Let me start with you, Honorable Adamu. There's been a lot of back and forth between your party and both parties. The PDP saying APC's popularity is waning, and so that they are rising, but APC, of course, to always disagree with that one. So if you could tell us, this back and forth, why did the PDP interpret it as such that they think that the popularity of the APC is waning?
You see, thank you, Mr. Chamberlain, for having me. Gombe has always been a PDP state. PDP has been enshrining Gombe for the past 16 years, and we have so many things on ground for everybody to see. And then, unfortunately, the person that took over from us, that is the PDP, the current governor of Gombe State, is running a government that is that lacks inclusiveness. People are not included. Is intolerant of the opposition. As you should know, I think on December 30th, there is a building that housed the birthday campaign organization. We sought for an improvement on the building. An approval was given by the State Development Board. Roughly, I think about a week or so in January, they come with a verbal instruction that we should stop the process. We now quickly rush to the court and ask for the intervention of the court. Surprisingly, after 3 days, those came off with caterpillars and pulled down the building.
Okay, but
this shows the level of intolerance to opposition.
Okay, so at the moment the matter is in court.
Yes, we have taken them out for contempt.
Okay, so we'll just try and stay away from.
Yes.
If it's in court, we'll wait for the court to decide that one.
Okay, you see, apart from that, Gombe has been in the middle of the Northeast, and you know the security situation in the Northeast has been somehow in the last 10 years or thereabout. But
that's
then
insecurity.
Yes.
Okay, but who did you, when you say they don't include people?
Yes.
Who specifically? Which people were you talking about?
Gombe is about people. Gombe is about inclusiveness. Gombe is about patronizing individuals.
Okay, so before you move on to other matters, you heard him say the party is intolerant of the opposition and several other high-handed accusations. What's your response to that?
The response by my brother here is quite laughable, because when he said government should be all-inclusive, and you asked the question, what do you mean, who people need to be included? We are people that are in government. We are citizens of Gombe State. In fact, the Gombe State governor has it on record to have appointed non-indigents into his cabinet. We have a special advisor on community relations who is an Igbo man. We have a Yoruba man who is the executive chairman of the Gombe State Sports Commission. So when he is talking about not including people, I am at loss as to what he means by that. If Gombe is a PDP state, what happened in 2019? Prior to that time, the governor was in the PDP, 2 senators were in the PDP, 5 members of the House of Representatives were in the PDP. But by 2019, it became all of these seats were won by the APC. And till date, that has been the situation in Gombe State. We are fortunate in Gombe State to have Alhaji Muhammadu Inuayaya as a governor, because he comes with a private sector background and a public service background, which is what the candidate of the PDP is lacking. Because the candidate of the PDP, we knew him, all of a sudden in 1990, he got lost in the radar, only for him to resurface in 2018, wanting to contest for the governorship of Gombe State. A lot of people in Gombe State would want to ask, what are the antecedents of the PDP gubernatorial aspirant?
So if it's that smooth, from what you say, how you've won over several other people, why is there so much acrimony? So many things, so many cases in courts, back and forth between both parties?
To be fair to the APC, like every other state in this country, they have their challenges as a result of the APC primaries that was conducted. People felt aggrieved, which is normal, and they have a right to go to court to seek for redress. But again, it is a known fact that Nigerian politicians are poor losers. anytime they lose, they cast aspersions. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a normal thing that is happening. It's not as acrimonious as what is obtainable in the PDP in Gombe State. But again, that is not to say that we will not sit in our homes and just allow things be as they are. I had called several times to address press conferences to address these issues. At a point in time, certain individuals left the party and people felt that the party was losing popularity. No, these people that left had an unbridled ambition to contest for the governorship of the state. And if they remain in the party, certainly the first right of refusal is for the governor. And certainly with all the good things he has done in Gombe State, you don't expect us to change the goalkeeper when the game is on.
You don't think that they'll work against the party?
No. Everybody, APC in Gombe State is one united family under the leadership of Alhaji Muhammadu Inoya.
One key thing that will be a major factor in these elections in Gombe State as well as many other states is security. If you give us a picture that all is well, how is the security in Gombe at the moment?
You see, Mr. Chamberlain, Gombe, as Ravalaiti pointed out, has been a very, very peaceful situation, even with the insurgents in the northeast. But with the coming of this gentleman, that is Governor Inoya, in the last 3 years of his administration, we had internal strikes more than 10 times, something that we have never had in the state. The security situation in the state now is so fragile that everybody is insecure. We have been with the Boko Haram for the first 10 years, but the security in Gombe State was perfect because the government was so concerned about security. We have the Kalares before the coming of the Rankombo administration, but when he came in, he employed over 15,000 youths and put them into proper employment. When Inoya took over, he disbanded the organization. He sent them out of employment, and then he only, just because people are crying and the election is coming, he decided now to employ 500 people. Out of 15,000 people that were employed by the PDP, and the United decided to employ only 500. Apart from that, what I mean by security, you see, the issue of coming to our office and doing all that is trying to temper with the security situation in this state. Because the last time, after despite the content of court that we had in the court, he decided about a week or so to send his stooges to come and redo the office again. And then the crisis...
Rebuild the office?
To come and destroy the remaining part of the office that is already standing.
While the matter was in court?
Yes, with the contempt charges. So he's trying to cause mayhem in the state because the indication from all over, north, west, south, Obo and Gombe State is like the APC is losing. It has already lost. So with that in mind, he decided to now resort to insecurity so that the state can be ungovernable for not only him, but everybody who wanted to contest for anything in the state. As he was rightly pointing out that before 2015, we have several persons in. It is the same. You can remember, even with the tsunami in 2015, Dangombo, our party leader, was able to still come back as a governor in 2015. That will show you the degree, the extent, the strength of the PDP in Gombe State. But what happened in 2019 is, let me use the word of my principal, the candidate of the PDP. He said, Yaya come out of this seat in 2019. He deceived the people of Gombe State with sweet mouth and sweet talk that is going to do a lot for them when he comes into power. Unfortunately, when he took over in May 2019, what is happening in Gombe State, as he is aware, has never happened in the 16 years of the PDP.
But before he responds, let's interrogate that a bit. You talk about security and how the situation is now fragile. Isn't that like a reflection of how many states, even in the Northwest, that hitherto had not seen any security issues, now began to witness it? Abuja here, we saw what happened at Kuje. We also saw the threat around the territorial integrity of Abuja. Wasn't that more a reflection of what was happening in the entire country rather than, say, the failings of the governor in Gombe?
You see, our own is different. It's a fellow leadership. In the Gombe situation, it's not banditry. The Gombe situation is not Boko Haram. The Gombe situation is internal strife because of lack of good leadership. People that used to stay harmoniously for hundreds of years, as the governor has been setting them against each other. Trouble has been happening, as I have said, in the last 3 years, for more than 10 communal strikes. That has never happened in the PDP years. It's happening. It's not Boko Haram. It's not banditry. We are safe from banditry. We are safe from Boko Haram, as I've rightly pointed out, despite the fact that Gombe has been in the center of the northeast. All these states has continued to be peaceful, and we are very grateful to God for living was peaceful. But with the coming administration, we wanted to believe that it is because of maladministration. People are hungry, people are angry, people are unemployed, people are underemployed. Despite the 30,000 minimum wage, people at the local government in Gombe State are still not on 30 minimum, they are still receiving 15,000 naira. Everybody is aggrieved in Gombe State. The situation in Gombe is dicey. We pray and hope before the elections something terrible with the way this guy is handling the state is not going to happen.
Maupe, you can bear me witness that my brother has not said anything about security in Gombe State. Internal strife, like he has said, is something that is, like, do we say, normal with us in this country because of contending demands for probably development and then patronage. But let me take you back to when Inuaya became the governor. He created the first Ministry of Internal Security in the whole of Nigeria. That is because he places premium on the security of lives and properties of the citizens of Gombe State. He also organized the first security meeting that was ever held in Gombe State, and the IG of police was the special guest of honor. He was there. And then as a part of the strategy towards containing the envisaged security issues, vehicles were procured, over 50 vehicles for Operation Hatara. That is going to be an operation that is going to consist of all the arms of the security forces. And that tells you so much about what this man feels about the security of Gombe State.
Perhaps
you are
so,
journalists.
Perhaps so, but, internal strife, you talked about, it's nothing. But what is politics if it's not the management of meager resources to the satisfaction of almost everybody, at least for the good of the majority? So if there is internal strife as a result of the fact that, the politics of the state has not been properly managed, isn't that, first indication that all is not exactly going well at the first duty of a public servant and a politician?
I'm a Christian. Mm-hmm. Jesus Christ came into the world. In fact, those who were his most vocal critics were the people of Jesus Christ, the Jews. In spite of the fact that he's the Son of God, nobody believed in him in spite of his unnatural capabilities. And so it's a natural thing. But the strife he's talking about is just created in the media. It's a media hype by the PDP to say that they could create disharmony among the people of Gombe State.
But did you not?
He's been economical with the truth.
Would you not say that it was something that, should have been, predicted, considering the fact that he was taken over from the PDP, which had been in the stronghold
That is what I'm saying, Maupe. He's been economic with the truth. While the PDP was still in government, these communal issues over boundary were always there. I am from where he's talking about, Gombe South. Most of these things are cited around the 4 local governments of Gombe South, of Kaltungo, Biliri, Shongom, and Balanga. And government has taken a lot of proactive steps. But because of the prevailing security situation in the country and the proliferation of arms, to a greater extent, government capacity to foresee or to project and to react is what is a bit wanting. But of course, like I said, with all these things they have put in place, a Ministry of Internal Security, the Security Summit, the Operation Hatara.
So he's right when you say it's a bit wanting. It means that he's got a point. When you say it's a bit wanting.
I mean, when I talk about wanting, it's in the general situation because we are supposed to be now technology-driven police, not the normal policing that we are used to.
But did the government go to further demolish the place recently?
Chamberlain, that is the matter that is in court, and I don't even want to mention
not discussing the matter that is in court.
Yes.
It's the action that he says happened despite the matter being in court.
Chamberlain, the choice of his words that government sent stooges it's even very, very, how do I say, unstatesmanlike, because he is referring to the Gombe State Urban Planning and Development Authority, which is an authority that was established by law to carry out certain responsibilities.
I understand that, but
not minding whoever is breaking the law.
Yeah, I understand that. That's why they went to court. But while the matter was in court,
yes,
did any further demolition take place?
No.
Which he said happened.
I am resident in Gombe. I came in from Gombe to attend this interview.
That did happen.
I passed through that office yesterday before I came. There was no further destruction.
Okay, maybe my colleagues in Lagos, they're going to come in now. They might have questions in that regard as well. Guys?
Well, one of the things that I would want to know from the ambassador is what, talking about education. ASU, for instance, has been on strike for quite a bit, and one would wonder why, in spite of all of that and the challenges that are being confronted all over the place, we still have lists of some universities coming up in Gombe State, despite, the fact that, people are wondering exactly how, these new universities will be funded when the old ones are having quite a hard time.
Yes, you see, that is part of the scam of the previous government in Gombe State. The last governor of Gombe State, Alhaji Ibrahim Hassan Dankombo, on the verge of his leaving office, less than 2-3 months to leaving office, created about 7 high institutions of learning in Gombe State. He created, amongst others, the Gombe State University of Science and Technology in Kumo. He created the the Institute of Sports. He created some other institutions that were not desirable. Now, Gombe State consists of 11 local governments, has a population of just about 3 million people. We have a federal university in Kashere. We have a state university in Gombe. We have a federal college of education in Gombe. We have a federal polytechnic in Kaltungo. What do you need another university for? As it were, with these high institutions of learning, indigenes of Gombe State are not able to fill their quotas in this institution, and you are creating more institutions. How are you going to sustain those ones? Even those ones that you have, you are struggling to contain them. But again, on the issue of education, I want to go back a little. Gombe State has this problem of out-of-school children. And the governor, in his futuristic way of thinking, in conjunction with BESDA, decided to create this Almajiri school system. As it were, over 200,000 out-of-school children were mopped up from the streets into these institutions of learning. You could go, you could check. Some of the best Almajiri schools have been built by the governor in Gombe State so as to mop up these children from the streets, as well as improving on the level and quality of primary education in Gombe State.
Well, all of that is desirable, Ambassador Boulder. Just 1 second. There is a shade, so to speak, that just a second, Ambassador. I think Mr. Adamu would want to respond to some of the things that you said about what the previous government did, starting or rather setting up universities that, as you said, were not desirable. Mr. Adamu, how would you react to that?
You see, it all depends on perception. Gombe being an educationally disadvantaged state, the previous administration under the able leadership of His Excellency Dr. Ibrahim Hassan Dankombo and Tobon Gombe, based on need assessment, decided in his wisdom to establish the University of Science and Technology in Kumo, and then School of Legal and Islamic Studies in Nafada with State Polytechnic in Bajoga. We did that one primarily because the focus of the government then was first priority education, second priority education, third priority education.
The challenge then,
But
Mr.
when this
Adamu,
government come into
just a second. The challenge then, just one second, Mr. Adamu, just one second. The challenge then wasn't really in the setting up of the institutions, as you have mentioned, but in the funding of them.
Yes.
And that's part of the issues that we've been having for about 6 months, counting now, with us.
The fund, you can agree with me that Ibrahim Zangombo is a senior accountant. He was at the time the Accountant General of the Federation. He didn't do that one of it before we decided to embark on establishing all these schools. And then we are certain that we have enough resources in Gombe State to run these schools. Let me give you an example. The university will not require, as a running cost, more than 2 billion naira per annum. And do you know what happened? Because of lack of priority, the governor of Gombe State decided to expend almost the sum of over 7 billion naira in trying to put solar street light in Gombe, where we already have an established solar street light across the state. He removed the one we had and installed the one he wanted to install because of lack of priority. If he had his priority right, there is no way you require only 2 billion naira to run a university per annum. You now discard the university, you now stop the university, you now abandon the university, and then go ahead and start putting in place solar street light for 7 billion naira. Well, already have a street light in Gombe. This is misplacement of priority. He didn't have his priorities right. That's why we're having economic. In fact, currently, if care is not taken, in the next 2-3 months, Gombe State cannot be able to be paying salaries because of lack of priority of the present administration. They are more concerned of awarding contracts.
Mr. Damo, I hope we'll have more time to talk about priorities in the course of this segment. Let me quickly come to Ambassador Boulder to talk a bit about security. The administration of Governor Inuwa Yahaya has, on a number of occasions, boasted in its administrative prowess to be able to rein in on security breaches in the state. But look, some have said that it's more a matter of coincidence, not necessarily about the competence of the government in the area of security, particularly when you look at the location of Gombe State, in proximity or in distance to other neighboring states, which are far bigger in size. Look at Borno, look at Adamawa, and look at, what's the other state now? Yobe, that are bordering Gombe to the right and to the north, and to the northwestern part, if you look at the location of Gombe State. So it would seem as if Gombe is removed from insecurity because of its location, not necessarily because of the competence of the administration of Governor Inuwa Yahaya. How do you respond to this? How do you respond to this?
I might want to laugh at your submission because if you say it is not because the governor has not done anything to address the security situation in Gombe State, how comes that Gombe State that is surrounded by states that are bedeviled with these security challenges? In fact, to even bring it nearer to you, about 2 months ago, there were incidences of incursions of these bandits into Kirfi local government, and Kirfi local government shares a common boundary with Gombe State because from Kirfi you enter Gombe State, and if it has come that close to Kirfi and it couldn't jump across to Gombe, it means the governor is doing something very positive. And like I said, on coming into office in 2019, he created the Ministry of Internal Security. He organized the first security summit. He now also created the Operation Hatara, which is a security outfit that is made up of all the security apparatus of the state, and bought them 50 vehicles to engage in routine surveillance of the state and so on and so forth. So I would be surprised.
Mr. Boulder, pardon me if I may come in there.
He has a special place in the heart of God.
Mr. Boulder, just pardon me if I may come in there. If Gombe were somewhere on the fringes of the borders with other countries, you'd agree that it would not be so removed, not be so insulated from insecurity and from the influx of terrorists on the borders?
Well, it is not. It is not our making. Providence has made it that way. And we are grateful to God that it has made it that way. And because it has made it that way, we jealously guard this God-given gift of peace, because peace is the basis for which every other development will take place. And the government of Muhammadu Inuahaya takes security as serious business. And let me just come back a little to the issue of education that I was trying to expatiate on before the question came in. Now, because of the lack of focus of the previous government and the futuristic way of thinking of the present government, when the government came into power, and the issue of the Gombe State University of Science and Technology, whose staff had been employed, but for close to 9 months were not being paid, the governor said this is unacceptable. He now went into a public-private partnership with a Malaysian university to run the Gombe State University of Science and Technology. That is futuristic thinking for you. And also, as we speak now, the Gombe State University has resumed academic activities last Monday as a result of the dexterity of the governor.
They backed out of ASU strike.
Well, I don't know how he was able to do it, but what I am telling you now, our children have now resumed back to school in the Gombe State University, and learning is about to take place.
I see you nodding in disagreement.
Yes, it's not true.
It's not true?
Yes, you should have known.
Probably because he does not reside in Gombe.
Where?
I reside in Gombe.
Where in Gombe?
And my daughter is a student of the Gombe State University. I am talking because it affects me directly. Let's not play politics with the lives of people and with development. If we truly desire the development of Gombe State,
we'll be winding
we should take these matters as they are.
So what's your point that this is not true?
You see, what I saw on social media was that Gombe State University wanted first-year students to resume at the end of this month. It's not a statement from the university. It's not a statement from the Ministry of Higher Education. It's a social media thing, and he's aware of it. And for him to say that I'm not a resident of Gombe, I have been living in Gombe since 1996 when Gombe State was created. When we moved from Bauchi State, I was a civil servant in Bauchi State. We moved in to Bauchi. I was a member of the State Assembly for 12 years, staying in Gombe, and a member of council for 4 years, staying in Gombe. And currently, my family is staying in Gombe, and I am also staying in Gombe. Right. And I even know Gombe better than he did, because the opportunity I had of knowing Gombe at these two levels I have stated, he didn't have the opportunity.
Okay, so gentlemen, we need to go now. In less than 60 seconds for each of you, what will you do if your party returns to power concerning job creation? What's the thinking?
Well, like I said, my governor, Alhaji Muhammadu Inuahaya, is a futuristic thinking governor. Some of the reforms he has undertaken in the civil service and in governance in Gombe State are quite futuristic in nature. As we speak now, he has set up a committee to look into the administration of pensions in Gombe State. This is something that has been an Achilles heel for previous governments that he has inherited. Because when he came into office, he inherited a pension liability of over 24 billion naira. It's part of the fact that money was made available.
Is there a target to create more jobs?
Yes, because when the pension is properly managed, you can free funds for other development. And also, he has created the Gombe State Security and Traffic Ordinances Agency, GSOTEC, which has employed over 2,000 youths and withdraw them from the streets so that they can be useful to themselves.
What's the thinking of your party for creating jobs?
You see, I've rightly pointed out before, the PDP is Gombe and Gombe is PDP. Gombe is PDP because in the 16 years of the PDP, the issue of human capacity development, employment of youth, payment of scholarships for students in the universities has always been the focus of the administration. And then with Mohammed Bade in 2023, when we took over in the name of God, inshallah, when we took over in 2023, we had as our focus, one, industrial revolution, because the government alone cannot take over everybody away from the street. As he was saying, the illiteracy rate in Gombe State is over 60%. We have over 700,000 children out of school. So the unemployment rate in Gombe, as I think last month, is roughly around 40-45%. People are unemployed.
Not 31%?
No, not 31%. This one,
I see 31%.
Yeah, it's more than 31%. It's more than 31%. So what we wanted to do is like industrialize the state and then strengthen the workforce, because currently,
all right,
strengthen the workforce, because as I was talking to you last week when the PDP candidate was on Channels TV, he made an assertion that the Gombe State Public Service is in disarray. There are no permanent secretaries in place. It is based on that a day or two, I think, or the day before yesterday, the governor, after having that outcry, decided to appoint 12 permanent secretaries.
Well,
in a state that has more than 40
We'll have time, I'm sure, for that matter subsequently as we progress. But at the moment, we have to thank both of you for coming on. Honorable Mohammed Danazumi Adamu is the Director General, Mohammed Jibrin Bade Campaign Organization. He's a member of the PDP. We'll also have Ambassador Moses Kiaribolda, who is the Publicity Secretary of the APC. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on. And all the best to both of you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
We will be back in a moment, everyone. Don't go away.
Like the Senate, the House of Representatives is working on the legislation to establish the National Electoral Offences Commission, and this gathering is to get the input of major stakeholders on the bill. The establishment of the National Electoral Offences Commission is part of the reforms of Nigeria's electoral laws by Parliament intended to enable free, fair and credible elections. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission believes that reforming the country's electoral process cannot be complete without effective sanctions on electoral offenders, a task he says is overburdening the commission.
INEC is saddled with the responsibility of prosecuting electoral offenders under the Electoral Act. This has been very challenging for the Commission. For instance, since the 2015 general election, 125 cases of electoral offenses were filed in various courts, out of which 60 convictions have so far been secured. So I recommend the establishment of the Electoral Offences Commission.
He stresses that INEC would like to see more successful prosecution of sponsors of electoral offences.
The ballot box snatcher is unlikely to be a beneficiary of the election. The person who gives money at the polling unit is unlikely to be a beneficiary of the election. And these shenanigans will not stop until we get to their sponsors, the high-profile sponsors of these violations, and make an example out of them.
However, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission opposes the establishment of a separate commission to investigate and prosecute electoral offenders in the country.
Section 145 of the Electoral Act also have already given prosecutorial power to the INEC to prosecute the criminal offenses. So it's our position that there's no need to create an agency solely for the purpose of investigating and prosecuting electoral offenses, most especially when our electoral processes is seasonal in nature.
The House of Representatives Committee on Electoral Matters is expected to collate the views expressed at this public hearing and prepare a report for the lower chamber. If passed, the bill will be harmonized with the legislation already approved in the Senate. Linda Akibi, Channels Television News.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Yes, as you've seen there, we've got Dr. Kingsley Moghalu, who joins us next. As you know, he's a former deputy governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, former presidential candidate, and then he is an economist, senior member of the United Nations, but he's a founder of I Get. Is it I Get or I Get? How did you?
I Get.
I Get. That happens to be a new initiative, is it? Which you just...
Well, it's new in the sense that we're revitalizing it. It has existed for a few years.
But you weren't focusing on it when you were focusing on politics.
Yes. Now I'm back to focusing on it. That's the Institute for Governance and Economic Transformation. It's a think tank.
So where do they play, or how is it being applied in the scheme of things, especially now that we're looking to see how we can get the right persons to lead the affairs of this country at all levels, as a matter of fact?
Well, you know, every society that makes progress makes very strong use of think tanks in terms of policy, advisory, research. And so what we intend to do is not to be an academic think tank, but to be every man's think tank. Every 2 weeks or so, we'll put out a policy brief on various issues, whether it's inflation, whether it's debt, whether it's poverty, whether it's job creation, whether it's corruption, you know, issues of governance and so on, you know, judicial reform. So this is what, and we intend to put it out in different languages, Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, as we go along, so that the masses of this country can be very well educated about the issues of public policy they need to be aware of in order to assess who should lead them and to know what to demand of the politicians. So this is what we're getting up to now. And of course, I've shifted back to this because I think it's very much needed at this time as we go towards 2023 and beyond. Nigeria is at a very, very difficult place. And I find that a lack of knowledge is a very, very important problem in this society.
How is that going to play out? Because, yes, we need thinkers. The country needs to think.
Absolutely.
I mean, other countries pay people just to think.
Exactly.
And get things done.
Yeah.
But over here, I mean, you've been in politics. You also have seen that time and again, it's not really about what the person has got to offer in terms of what's, you know, in the great matter, but what the pecuniary gains they can get, decide what happens in the next 4 years.
Yes.
How can this change that kind of narrative?
Well, we have no option but to keep fighting that battle, to educate people. This is why yesterday I was speaking at an event, I think it was the Ibrahim Babangida Legacy Dialogue, and I was saying that, you know, the whole matter of voter education by INEC, of course, there are other actors who should educate voters, like political parties themselves. But it is INEC's responsibility. And I think that although they're making a lot of effort in various areas, I think they need to do a lot more in voter education. Because it's the way people's mind, you know, thinking is more important than we think. It is, as a man thinketh, or as a woman thinketh, so is he or she. And we have a low literacy level in this country, 62%. Even people who have gone to school and are formally educated, you will be very shockingly surprised to find that they are not very politically educated. And so the think tank will continue to put out this narrative, first of all, facts, information, knowledge about basic issues, and continue to be part of the advocacy for good governance. It's a job for all of us, not just for IGET, but we will be part of. It's not easy to change the way things are in any society. It takes time, you know, but if you look at the 2023 election, you will see a qualitative difference between what's happening and what happened in 2019 and what happened in 2015. Gradually,
in terms of what, preparations, or
no, in terms of the demands of citizens. I think citizens are beginning to react against the establishment politicians, and this is one of the things that I led. You know, from 2019 when I ran for president, that young people, for example, need to get much more involved in politics, and that we need, you know, debates based on policy, based on agendas, based on plans, not just, you know, ethnic origin, This is my party. This is the structure. You know, all of that is a habit that keeps people in slavery. Nigerians need to be liberated mentally.
Do you think the biometric voter accreditation system of INEC is, I mean, what kind of role do you think it plays or played in the enthusiasm shown by young people to participate in these elections?
Very significant. The BVAS and, you know, electronic transmission of results in the amended Electoral Act, which, again, I was one of the people who fought for this after the 2019 elections. I said to myself, I would not continue with this type of thing if the electoral framework is not significantly reformed. So that reform has come to a significant extent, and it has given a lot more people confidence that perhaps their vote will count this time. So this is how a society develops, and it's a good thing.
I want to take you back to how you say you're going to be, you know, sharing the policy that you will come up with from my get, and you say you're going to be, you know, doing it in different languages. And I was just wondering what is informing that choice. I'm just wondering if people are literate, wouldn't they be able to read in English language?
Yes, it will come out in English, but eventually we will also start putting it in local languages, because if you go into the villages, there's still a lot of people who don't understand these things. They don't. I mean, the market woman knows that the price, the person who sells pure water knows that the price of her product has increased because the price of nylon has increased or whatever, you know, but they don't understand the concept of inflation. You understand what I'm saying?
So I'm just wondering if they can read English, you think that...
It will be mainly in English.
If they cannot read English, do you think they'll be able to read any of the local languages in which you will translate it to?
Oh, yes. Many people read, especially in Hausa. In fact, many people from the North prefer to read in Hausa than in English, even when they speak English. I can tell you that. I know. I mean, I've been a politician, so I've moved around in this country, and I know people's habits. You see what I'm saying? If they're not reading, they can be listening to it on the radio. Because the products will go to the press as well.
I was going to ask whether you wouldn't prefer to do it in an audio format instead.
Yes, of course there will be audio.
It'll be interesting to see. Now that you're no longer
a candidate,
and you're not exactly going to be actively... well, maybe that's not the word.
I'm not partisan, but I'm still involved in nation building.
In nation building, of course, we all are involved in nation building, and you're certainly not a candidate in the elections. You're now going to be voting, like everybody else.
Absolutely.
What would you say are some of the things that are going to be informing? Because some people are saying that the choices in these elections are still not very many. They're wondering if we have been able to throw up the right kind of candidates for this election. So for you, who's looking at the problems that Nigeria has, and who's also looking at the people that have been thrown up at the national level, and maybe at the state level as well, would you say that our internal processes of our political parties have thrown up the right kind of candidates?
I wouldn't speak very highly of the internal processes of political parties, having been a member of a couple of political parties myself. You know, Nigerian politics, you see, delegates in Nigeria are mainly looking for pecuniary benefits. And once that is the basis on which delegates make decisions, it cannot necessarily throw up the best candidates. You see, so there is a problem in the internal political party processes. And INEC needs to look far more deeply and regulate these processes. One of my recommendations is that the government should fund political parties. This was done in the time of the SDP and the NRC that Babangida set up, you know, a little to the right, a little to the left. And I think if you look at how much the government spends on other things, we spend 4 trillion naira on petrol subsidy. Do you think you would need to spend 500 billion on funding political parties?
But why should they fund it?
Let me tell you, in many countries of the world, it's a policy choice and a legislative choice. In Germany and in many countries of the world, in Canada, the government funds political parties so that what voters are deciding on are the issues, not who is giving them more money. Look at how much the forms cost. APC forms, candidature forms for the presidency, 100 million naira. I mean, come on. If the federal government were funding political parties, they would not feel under pressure to be selling forms at such exorbitant rates in order to make basic money for them to operate. So this is part of what is driving political corruption.
So if we were to fund political parties, would you then recommend we streamline them and not have so many of
No,
these
it's in a democratic society, you cannot legislate how many parties will exist. The military tried it because they were military. But in a democratic system, what the political regulator, which is INEC, would do is to set very high standards for you to be registered to become a political party. If you're able to qualify
for those funds.
Yes, to qualify for those funds.
I do know that before now, INEC used to fund political parties.
Exactly.
Even in the the Fourth Republic. Yeah. And what we saw was a proliferation of political parties. Political parties that existed just in name and maybe brief. They were called briefcase
parties.
But
just for the money.
Which was just for the money. We've been down that route. It hasn't quite worked out.
No, it depends on how you do it. Okay. It depends on how you do it.
But I want to go back to my original question, which is about the candidates.
Yes.
What exactly will be informing your choice? Because for some people, after looking at the candidates that have been thrown up, they think that this is not the way to go. They think that perhaps what we need to do is to restructure. I mean, those who have been saying, look, we don't think the next elections are going to solve the problems, the myriad of problems that we're looking at, if we do not make fundamental changes to how our country is currently being run.
I am of that view. We are not focusing on the real issues in this country. And the first real issue is nationhood. Who is a Nigerian? What does being a Nigerian mean to me or to you? You know, are you first Yoruba, Fulani, Igbo, Hausa before you're a Nigerian, or are you a Nigerian who comes from a particular ethnicity? These are questions that have not yet been resolved because we have not yet evolved a leadership that is very focused on nation building. So that's the number one foundational issue that has yet to be addressed in this country. And one way to begin to address it is through the process of constitutional restructuring. And it is a failure of leadership that many Nigerian politicians are running away from this issue. It's difficult, it's sensitive, but we must confront it because the country is not working. The economy is collapsing. There's no way the economy of this country can recover and rise to its full potential without a constitutional restructuring back to proper federalism. So you have the nation issue, the national question, then you have the matter of the structure of the country constitutionally. These are two foundational issues. Without addressing those two issues, I'm afraid that, you know, these cycles of elections will not necessarily produce any miracle.
I've heard two candidates already talk about, you know, uniting Nigerians.
Yes.
I think that the PDP candidate has, you know, been talking about how he intends to unite Nigerians. I've also heard how the Labour Party candidate is also saying that his emergence as the presidential candidate of the Labour Party by itself is something that, you know, Nigerians can unite around. I do not know if these carry sufficient weight for you, or if
they are good developments. If the PDP presidential candidate is focusing on national unity and issues of restructuring, then it's a good thing.
What are the questions we should be asking of these people who talk about unity as one of the things that they intend to do or intend to achieve?
Well, the first question you have to ask about or from them is, what is the basis of unity? Let me explain my comment. Today, there are people who want everyone, and they tell you Nigeria is a united, indissoluble, whatever country. But what about justice? What about equity? What's your view, Mr. Candidate, on how the man from Oron or the man from Makurdi or the man from can be assured that he or she has equal voice in the affairs of this country, can be president? Are you going to recommend a constitutional recommendation for rotational presidency, for example, among the 6 geopolitical zones? It is one possibility to make everybody feel that, quote unquote, Emiloka, their turn will come. So this is a universal Emiloka. You know, so these are innovative ideas that people can come up with. Not just coming to tell us politics is a game of numbers. That's a very selfish and short-sighted argument. I said it yesterday that Hillary Clinton had 3 million votes more than Donald Trump Donald Trump became the president. Why? Because the American system is a system of an electoral college. It's an indirect election. And because Donald Trump won the electoral college votes, he became the president. Is that your definition of democracy, the way you understand it? That somebody would have 3 million votes more and still lose to some? So this, but it's their system. Nigeria can fashion its own system. And I said it, that in Switzerland, for example, they have a rotational federal presidency. Yeah. It's a confederation. They rotate the presidency every 2 years. Every country practices democracy with some adaptation to its own situation. And so, the question we would be asking the candidates who says I'm unifying is this question, the building blocks of the unification. Tell us specifically, what are you going to do to develop a vision of Nigeria from childhood that people go through primary school, secondary school, and become more patriotic? You see what I'm saying? How are they going to be educated in ethics? These were some of the ideas that I came out with when I was a candidate. I had very specific solutions.
Would you be working with any of the candidates?
Well, if you ask me for advice, I will give you. And perhaps you might have to pay for it.
Well, that's where I guess comes in, if they get it. Well, our colleagues in Lagos have got questions for you. So go ahead, guys.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Well, Prof, I'm happy, or rather, I get. I hope you understand what I'm trying to play up on the name of your organization. And, you know, it's interesting because you combine governance and economics in that team, the think tank that you're talking about. It's also interesting because Wikipedia describes you as a political economist. Maybe that's why you have to put the two of them together, you know, in one pot. But in the course of responding to the questions of my colleagues with you there, you talked about political education, and that's one of the things that you intend to focus on with IGET. So I'm wondering if there is a need for people to understand, because there are those who say there is a marked difference between voter education and political education. And one, we seem to be focusing a lot more on one, while mostly neglecting the other, which is political education. We focus a lot on voter education as opposed to political education. If we are going to drive this down really, exactly how do we go about it? Not just about throwing figures or data around. We know that every political cycle, every election cycle, politicians are always going out of their way to outdo each other, to make each other look good or look bad. I remember a Ghanaian clergyman saying, politicians do that because no matter how well or not a government is performing, the whole idea is, look my way, ignore the other way. So in terms of political education, exactly how should we be going about it? More importantly, among the young people, who many people say they probably are not even interested in all of this.
Yes, you know, there is voter education, there's political education, there is political participation. They're all related. I believe that INEC should do all. You can call it voter education, but it's not enough to tell people how to use their PVC. It is important to let people know, you know, the minimum standards they should be looking for. INEC can tell people, whether it's in classrooms across the country, whether it is through community organizations, like, you know, in many villages, they can organize lectures, they can organize classes, and tell people the dangers of selling their vote. That is not just, that's voter education, but it's also political education, you see? So it doesn't really matter what you call it, but what you're doing is to raise the political consciousness of citizens, why they need to vote. Nigeria's elections in 2019, voter turnout in the presidential election was about 35%. In Kenya, in the elections they just had, they had 65% voter turnout, and they said it was a low voter turnout, because in the previous election they had about 77% voter turnout. So I'm saying I hope Nigeria will achieve the low voter turnout that Kenya did. If we had a 65% vote turnout in 2023, I would be ecstatic with joy, because, you know, it's double what we
You know,
saw in
Prof.
2019. So, you have to use the classrooms, you have to use the cultural organizations, you have to use the political parties. Every political party should show to INEC what its structure is for educating its members on
that
basic aspects of political participation.
On that,
Once you're
Prof.
18 and above.
I think the question that I'm asking, especially around political education, apes Marquez' question the other time about the quality, the level of or the kinds of candidates that have been thrown out for the elections across all political party lines, across all levels, all stages of the elections. State houses of assembly, the National Assembly, and the rest of them.
Yes.
Perhaps the question then is, what level of political education do we need to give people who are not interested in politics now to get in? Because someone like you got in because you felt the people we have are not raising the bar enough. So maybe if people had enough significant political education, they would not only be participants, they will be major players and become candidates themselves who can offer good governance for the development of the nation.
Yes, you're right. I mean, this is, like I always say, it's a process. It cannot happen overnight. We've come from a history of many decades of military dictatorships on which people soured on democracy. We also have a background of basic poverty where people feel that, well, those who are voting are those who have had 3 square meals. Let me go and look, first of all, for my own survival. But you can explain to people that political apathy is not an option. That is part of political education. Because the reason you are poor is because the people who are elected are not doing their job for you, to create jobs for you, to give you education, to make the economy functional. So, these are the kinds of things we have to do across the board. You can also tell Nigerians that the minimum standards you should be looking for in a candidate are A, B, C, and D. Character, track record, issues. That candidate must tell you what he or she is seeking to do with the position for which he is asking your vote. These are very minimum things. But there are many candidates who come, they don't discuss substance, and people still vote for them. You see? And that's because many people don't know that they should demand for this level of substantive discussion. They have to look at your track record. If you've been in business, if you've been in public service, if you've been in civil society, how well did you perform on any job you did? That's what people don't understand. Leadership can be a transferable skill. People don't have to have been a politician all their lives, but many people in this country assess candidates based on whether or not they have been governors, whether or not they have been senators. This shows a lack of political understanding, a lack of political education, and this is what we need to teach people. And INEC needs to be part of this. It needs to lead the process, but so many more of us need to be involved. The way people think in this country is a major reason they elect the wrong leaders. And I've talked about delegates and what they do in political parties. So once the process is flawed from inside the political party, then at the election, we don't have a very high quality choice of candidates, because the only people you can vote for in an election are the people who the party has presented. But if you go into the political party and the political party is a trading platform just looking for people to give them money or give officials or delegates money and become the candidate, then they're not very interested in actually winning the election. The party exists as a business enterprise. This also happens in some parties. So there's a lot that we need to fix in our politics, but we are making progress. And therefore, for example,
do hope that we
the fact that a candidate is talking about unification, the fact that Labour Party, that Peter Obi has emerged, and with the obedient movement, all these things are good developments because, for example, I was saying in the past that the APC and the PDP have had a monopoly, and the truth is that they have not delivered very much. So Nigerians are now looking at something else. And therefore, the emergence of that candidacy
Yes,
that
indeed,
is shaking
Prof.
up the two major parties.
I hope that we get to that level of intense scrutiny, where our candidates are concerned, so that we can make the right choices. Good morning, Prof. It's good to see you. I'm interested in IGET. Particularly as it impacts on our recent experience, brilliant. Every democracy needs a think tank. But Prof, we've had brilliant minds on the economic teams, even of this administration. My concern is I wonder why it doesn't impact significantly on economic transformation where desired results are concerned. Do you have that concern as well? Does it puzzle you why it doesn't transform into, translate
no, it doesn't puzzle me.
into the results? If it doesn't, what are your thoughts?
Let me explain why we have that situation. And that was one of the reasons I went into politics. One of the reasons we have the situation we have is that, you see, every country makes as much progress as the competence or incompetence of its political leadership. If I, given what I know, given the experience I have as a central bank deputy governor, as a university professor, as a former United Nations official, I've had experience in economic policy. I've had experience in international peace and security. I've had experience in international diplomacy and nation building. If I come and I have the political will, you see, some people have knowledge, but they don't have the political will to bring about change. See, so you must have the knowledge, you must have the competence, and you must have the character. And the character is, part of that character is the will to do what needs to be done. So that's number one. When you bring to ultimate political leadership people with high capacity, you can have a better management of the economy, especially if those people have economic knowledge and experience. That's number one. Number two is then coming back to the matter of knowledge itself. You see, there are many economists in Nigeria, and they focus on all these economic equations and all this technical stuff. No, Nigeria's challenge is a challenge of political economy, the interaction between our politics and the management of our economy. And we see that our economy is basically arranged as a rent-seeking enterprise for people who have political connections and for the financial benefit of the politicians, the policymakers, and some businessmen. Then you have the third issue. That issue is the matter of the constitutional structure of the country. If Nigeria is a country in which the federal government owns the mineral resources and allocates it to the states will become lazy. This is what has happened over many decades. So, first of all, you must have the knowledge of why the economy is bad and why poverty is high.
What would you then,
and then
Prof,
you must have the capacity, then you must have the will.
Prof, pardon me to come in there. What would IGET then recommend? Because some have said, look, separate the politics, from economy, separate the ministers or ministries' influence in the procurement processes from each other, such that the politicians can concentrate on the business of governance, while the technocrats can concentrate on the business of managing the economy. Is IGET, in alignment with that? And what are the results that can be gleaned from that?
It's a false distinction. Let me just give you an example. The economic management team we have today and the horrible economy we have. Would you argue that most members, if not all of the members of the economic team, are brilliant economists, people who have knowledge? I don't think anybody would argue that, but why is the economy the way it is? One of the reasons, and in my book, Build, Innovate, and Grow, because I've come out with a roadmap on these things, I had said, when I recommended the formation of an economic advisory council, it has to be a full-time body. It cannot be a part-time body. Because what it means, first of all, is that the political importance that is attached to it. In America, you have the Council of Economic Advisors, 3 economists, full-time. There's nothing else they do but crunching the numbers and watching the economy. And when you are appointing the members, if I were president and I'm appointing the members of an economic council, I would have in my mind, because of the knowledge that I have, these 5 members or so, what are their specialties? One of them must be a macroeconomist. One of them must be a developmental economist. Somebody must be an expert on trade. You know, somebody would have to be an expert maybe in agricultural economics and industrial policy. These are the things that need to be focused on. And you would assemble a team knowing what you need. But many of our politicians do not have this level of knowledge that I'm explaining to you. So they just say, oh, brilliant CV. This man is an economist. Come into the economic team. But you don't have in your mind the outcome you're expecting. Exactly. And you're pointing based on that outcome. So this is the point. So the political will and the political process is important.
All right.
Many aspects of the economy require legislation also, especially taxation. So you cannot separate the political aspect from the technical aspect as such. You know, tax laws are laws, and they're made by politicians.
These are clearly issues that we're going to keep highlighting as we progress and inch towards that time when the campaign
And we'll be making suggestions.
People will know this.
That's what will be doing. We'll be making suggestions.
We'll look forward to that.
All these things.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We do thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you.
Dr. Kingsley Moghalu, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, former presidential candidate and founder of IGET. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
We will be back in a moment. Stay with us.
Foremost, letting the person know the offenses that the person has committed. I believe such offenses is supposed to have come in writing, letting me know you have committed A, B, C, D, or thereabouts, and then I should be able to respond. It is a consequence upon my response that I will be invited by a committee to look at those issues before a decision is taken. And also knowing that when they started this issue of suspension, it was all like a kangaroo. They went to my ward, consult, tell them. And those ones said, no, she has done nothing. She has been the one supporting the ward. So why do you want her suspended? And they went ahead to tell them that that the lawyer has also served them because that the case is in court. That everybody should be calm. We all belong to APC. That when the decision is taken, that they will take it from there. But they will not act because they have an order telling them not to do anything. No, they wouldn't stop. They had to invite them to Abakaliki, kept them in house arrest, trying to force them to do what they didn't want to do. Those ones had to even issue a statement as the ward. That wasn't enough. They went back home. They said the next day they called them to Abakaliki again. These people have been back and forth, back and forth. And when they called them back and they said, oh, you must do this, it was at that point, according to my chairman, they were now telling them, oh, I did this, I did that. And those ones now said, okay, put them in writing so that we'll be able to call her to find out what she has done. And according to them, they set up a 7-man committee. This was happening until on a Thursday. By Friday, they came back and said they should go to local government. It was at that local government area that they tried to make the chairman to sign, and he got information that he was going to be attacked if he doesn't sign it. So the man quickly left. Till today, we don't even know where he is. But
yeah, Uche Oji joins us next. He's the Commissioner for Information, Ebonyi State. Good morning, and thank you for joining us virtually from Abakaliki today. Well, you heard the accusations there. She says that there's threat to her life by agents of the governor of the state. What's going on?
Thank you very much, Chamberlain. Let me thank you again for the opportunity to hear our own side of the story. Princess Anne Agameze is our sister, and we appreciate her very well. For the extent of going to levy falsehood against the state government is what we must address. Nobody has threatened Mrs. Anne Agameze in Ebonyi State, not even any security official of Ibubago, not even any government official at all. You recall that on the 28th day of May 2022, Ms. Anne did contest election with Chief Augustine Chukwu Umahi and lost woefully. In that field that it is the Senatorial Zone headquarters, nobody did insult or molest, let alone attacking her. It was like a win-win situation because she came out congratulating Chief Austin Umahi, not minding the fact that the APC had sat in line with the internal democracy arrangement and they zoned that senatorial ticket to a different local government from hers. And as fate would have it, her local government also got a zoning arrangement for House of Representatives that is in line with the tradition of our state since 1999. Democracy started in Ebonyi State.
Was that why it was difficult for her to be able to submit her forms? Because she said that her problems seemed to have started when she obtained the forms and then tried to submit the forms. That she noticed that immediately there was some opposition to her being able to submit her forms.
It would have been easier, you and I know that, to go for screening perhaps before national officers of the party than to go to the field where the electorates are to seek for nomination. The delegates came out in their numbers, and she was there as an aspirant who contested the election. Nobody did even insult her. Everybody was exchanging pleasantry. So why will it be that at the point of screening that she was molested? So it is really foolhardy to mention that. And let me say that all through the period, even after she had voluntarily withdrawn from that contest, from the aspiration, which was on the 9th day of June, she kept coming home. I think she knows what is actually her problem, I tell you. If she comes back to Ebonyi State today, no person would molest her. And she knows that. We appreciate her, but the truth of the matter is that what she's contesting, under the law, she has the right to contest. But then you need to tell the public the truth. The first election was the only election she contested, and she lost. The second election, she did not contest at all. The third election, the party even begged him to come and contest, and she did not. Now, it was the second election, which was held on the 9th of June, arising from her voluntary withdrawal, which was properly documented and witnessed by national officers of the party.
Well,
it was the second election that the governor did go to court to seek.
Yeah, we have a lot of that background. But Commissioner, when you say that if she comes to Abakaliki or Ebonyi State, nobody will harass her, did you get that directive or that assurance from the chief executive of the state, the governor himself?
From the beginning to the end, that has been the principle of this state. We are very democratic.
Did the governor say that? Because, I mean, he's the chief executive of the state, so he can
if he comes, nobody will molest him. If he comes, nobody molest. I'm speaking as a spokesman of the government. Nobody will even molest him or insult him. I mean, sorry. But let me assure you that if she has any issue with the police, that is issue of law. So she has got to go and face the law. But as for molestation, as for insult, as for any attack, apart from it, we cannot.
Well, she alleges that, ever since the governor tried to, run for president and then come back to, get a ticket for the Senate, he hasn't exactly tolerated any voice of dissent. She also claims that some of her supporters are also being molested in the state. I do not know if you can speak to the setting up of the home of Barrister Nkem Chukwu. Is there a reason why the home of this particular supporter was sealed up by a 7-man team?
That is part of the continued falsehood that is being dished out to the public. There is nothing like that. And I can only tell you that the party only exercised their powers under the Constitution to suspend and later expel her. And that is all. And the issues of perjury is issues of law. And so that is another issue. But for attacking her or attacking anybody that is supporting her, apart from that, we don't do that in Ebonyi State, I tell you. Our governor is women-friendly in all ramifications. Let me tell you, it's only in Ebonyi that I can get 100% vice chairman, current vice chairman being women, 100% incoming vice chairman being women, 100% political secretary of local government being women, head of service is a woman, chairman of civil service commission is a woman, chairman of local government service commission is a woman, chairman of House of Assembly Service Commission is a woman. We have more than 40% of the women in the Executive Council. We have also women in different places in governance. We appreciate them. And so coming to say, because she's a woman, people are trying to attack her. That is far from that. Well, let's just face it, because we need to appreciate the whole issue.
Honorable Commissioner.
I never contested the election.
Commissioner Orji. Good morning. When you say if she has other issues to deal with the police, that those are other issues, and you refer to the issue of perjury, who is making this accusation? If it's not coming from the state government, if it's not coming from the leadership of the All Progressives Congress in Ebonyi State, who is making this accusation against Madam Anne Agom Eze?
Let me first of all tell you that nobody, no matter how highly placed you are, even if you're a government functionary, is above the law. Perjury is a very serious offense under the law. And I know it's part of the reasons why the ward, that is the local government, the ward executive committee had to summon her to find out why she should go to lie on oath. Because that to them is an affront, to the principles of the party, the ethos of the party. And again, going also to help now with, PDP senatorial candidate with a view to relegation the position if she gets ticket is also an affront to the collective sensibility of the members of the party. And so if they have gone to get the police to investigate the issue of perjury, who am I to query that? The governor cannot even query that because people must ventilate their right of petitioning people who have offended the law. Are you saying that perjury should be allowed because she's a woman? The answer is no. I know you will not allow that.
So why is the ward chairman? Why is the ward
found that she didn't do that? Then she has to seek for damages.
Then why is the ward chairman on the run, according to Madam Eze?
It is actually what she will explain. All I could deduce from the circumstances, because I'm also from that from that federal constituency. We have 3 local government areas. My local government is one of them. That of Anne is one of them, and that of the governor is one of them. And we are within the same senatorial zone. So I can say that the chairman, the first meeting that was held, she did convene that meeting. And they had their resolution saying that this woman was actually embarrassing them with the way and manner she was going about the issue of senatorial ticket. And they had to really resolve to suspend her. And further, resolve as a result of that insubordination, that refusal, failure, and neglect to appear before them, they had to expel her. So it was at the moment that I think it was a matter of pressure or inducement that made her to just sneak out. At the point, nobody saw him again. And I can say that
that's not the only. Just 1 second, Mr. Orji. Just one second, because we are running out of time. If you can hear me, Mr. Orji, that's not the only issue that seems to be, contestable. Just recently, I think it was just hours ago, we heard that the court has also said that all those local government elections should also be suspended. And the position of the other side on that issue is that the state government hid the law with which it conducted the elections, the local government elections. Exactly what's going on?
Yeah, if you can just give me time, let me address that squarely so you won't come back to that, please.
You need to make it quick.
Let me mention that the local government election under Section 7, Subsection 4 of the Constitution belongs exclusively to the state government to conduct. And we have a law governing that. I will give you an example. This is the law that was amended in 2019. And this law is Ebonyi State Law number 001, Ebonyi State Electoral and Related Matters Amendment Law 2020. Now, the law was legislated upon first reading, second reading, third reading, public hearing done, all in public. And it was passed to law. The governor signed in line with his powers under the Constitution, and it was gazetted. Gazetting entails, in political jurisprudence, you need to know the meaning of having a law and gazetting a law. In political jurisprudence, you need to know the difference between candidate and aspirant. In political jurisprudence, you need to know the difference between
I'm almost certain, Mr. Oji, that all of these issues that you have raised are not unknown to the court, yet the court nullified the elections. So, in your opinion, why would that happen if everything went according to the law?
I'm trying to say that, thank you very much. What I'm saying is that it was a miscarriage of justice. We are going to really appeal. And of course, we still have the right of appeal up to the Supreme Court on the matter. So we've got no problems. We've looked at their issues for determination. Let me tell you, do you know the people that went to court? Not political party, not PDP, not
all right, Mr. Oji, we'll get your point.
When they went to court, their grounds is that they were not availed this law.
Yeah, unfortunately, Mr. Oji, we do get your point.
To avail the law.
Mr. Oji, we have to anchor at this point. We do thank you very much indeed for your time today, but a lot of, if not all of what you said has been put across, and sure they've gotten the point as well. Thank you for talking to us today. Uche Oji is the Commissioner for Information at Ebonyi State. All right, we've got some messages that came through. Professor Imonoha talks about, this is a tweet actually. He says, we must henceforth not vote individuals without known management capacity or capabilities to micromanage our peculiar mono economy, invest in agriculture, SMEs, reduce the interest rates on borrowing to single digits, sort out power and dumping of goods in Nigeria. Wow.
And we have this email from Sam Ero, who says, talking about London meetings, he says, first, they send their children to London for education. Next, they go to London for medical and healthcare. Now they're going to London for political meetings. With all the issues we're facing as a nation, elected officials should stay in their states and offer service to their people. The emperor's, in quote, fiddle when Rome burns, or while Rome burns.
It's Sam saying London is an accomplice in this matter.
Well, I already asked that question. At whose cost? I love this meeting taking place.
Oh dear.
Thank you so much for sending in your feedback this morning. Thank you for being a part of our program this beautiful Friday morning. It's a wet one here in Abuja, so please drive carefully. I'm Malpa Ogun Yusuf.
I wonder what the situation is in Lagos, but I'm sure you guys don't mind it, do you? Well, if you do, just try. Well, I'm Chamberlain, so we'll see you next time.
Well, we're not complaining about rains. It's just the traffic. Because while some people are saying, thank God it's Friday, some people are saying, oh God, it's Friday. Amaya Makinde, have a wonderful rest of your day.
Well, some of us will be back here again early tomorrow morning. But
exactly.
London is an accomplice. I'll be thinking about that whilst I return. I'm Bukola Samuel Wemimo. Thank you for watching.